Today I'm going to be teaching you how to create a geometric pattern which is based from an Islamic geometric design. This is it here in front of you. You can vary it up at the end, but this is essentially what we'll be creating. We'll be using the free graphic design software called Gravit. If you don't already have an account, just head over to Gravit, Gravit, create an account. It's free and it's a fairly quick and easy process. Once you've logged in, just click the Create Design button here, and I would suggest going for a workspace that's roughly the same size as your desktop. Doesn't really matter too much. I'm going to go 1680 by 1050, and then click Create with Custom Size to actually make it. I'll zoom in a little bit or fit all. Now, before I start, I'll just be showing you what we're aiming to create to start off with. So we're going to create an irregular pentagon. This is a regular pentagon where all sides and angles are the same up the top here. The one down the bottom is an irregular pentagon where we have two of the angles are 90 degrees and the other three are 120. It's a fairly tough thing to draw, but I've come up with a method. There may be a more efficient way, but this is the only way that I know how to do it. So I'm going to start off by drawing a square. Doesn't matter what size, just any old square. Just click the rectangle tool and hold down the shift key to create your square. And I'm going to turn the fill off. And I want to right click on the square, click convert to path. And once it's converted to a path, I want to open that path by clicking this button over here. If you can't see this panel, all you need to do is click on the Format button up the top here, and that opens up this panel. So I'm going to click Open Path, and you can see that's removed one of the lines. Next thing I want to do is click on my Sub-Select tool. It hasn't actually done it, so I'm going to click on it again. Doesn't seem to be working. If I hit the S, that's right, without the shape selected, that works. And you can see by the cursor being a hollow color or a white color instead of the black color. And then I want to select that bottom corner and delete it so that I only have a right angle or two sides of the square left. My next step is to go back and get my pointer tool, click on my two lines, and I want to rotate this by 30 degrees. So I'm going to transform, and then actually I can just click on the arrow with the line up there, hold down shift, and I'm going to transform it 30 degrees or negative 30 degrees, and there's my first right angle in my pentagon. Next, I have to copy and paste these two lines in place. So I'm going to push Control C on my keyboard and then Control Shift V to paste in place. Now you can't actually see that there's two sets of lines there, but if you look over here on the Layers panel, you can see that there's two paths. What I need to do now is go Modify, Transform, and then Flip Horizontal. And you can see there's my second set of lines for my pentagon. You can start to see it take shape. If I drag it across, and I'll get these red guides if I have snap turned on, use snapping and snap to grid. I'd suggest turning all of these ones on here. Couple more things that I need to do. These two sets of lines aren't actually joined as a shape yet. So what I need to do is, again, get my Sub-Select tool, and I want to click on the top dot of the left-hand set of lines. So you can see it's gone hollow or it's turned white, which means that only that anchor is selected. And I'm going to delete that anchor. The last thing I really need to do is to connect those 2 points and these 2 points. And if I try and do it as is, I'll show you what happens. Select the whole lot of lines, and I go Modify, Path, and then Connect Paths Lines. Unfortunately, it creates this line here, and I don't want that. So I'm going to undo by pushing Control Z. Oops, I went too far. This time what I'm going to do is rotate this line here 180 degrees. So it'll look the same, but it's slightly different. So I'm going to rotate it by holding Shift, and then click let it go when it reaches 180 degrees. Now this time when I connect my paths, it should join them properly. So there's one, and again I need to do it the second time. Connect paths lines, and that's my shape. And I can tell it's a completed shape by giving it a fill. So if I use one of my pre-programmed colors, and you can see it's a regular shape here. One last thing I need to do, or I don't have to do, but it will make my life a little bit easier, is these dots around the outside. They're called a bounding box, and I want to reset that bounding box. And the way that I can do that is by clicking Modify, Path, Convert to Raw Path, and it's reset those dots. So that's the first stage. The next stage is we need to create 6 of these irregular pentagons rotated around each other. So I'll turn my fill back off, and I want to shrink down this shape a little bit. So I'm going to transform it, hold Shift, and shrink that down so that it becomes a smaller size. Now, we want to rotate these pentagons around a central point roughly here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get an ellipse, and I want to draw it exactly in line with that central point. If I click and hold Shift, it will draw a perfect circle, but it's not on that central line. So I need to click and hold Shift and Alt, the Alt key, at exactly the same time. And you can see there, by doing that, it draws it around that central point. I'll let that go. I'll just turn the border off just for the sake of clarity. And now what I need to do is copy and paste this 6 times around this central point. So I'm going to select my irregular pentagon, click Control C and then Control Shift V. I want to go up here and click the transform button, and if I rotate it, you'll see that it rotates around the center of that irregular pentagon, which is not what I want. So I'll undo that. What I want to do is move this little dot in the middle of the pentagon up into the center of this blue dot, and you can see the guides help me with that. So I'll let that go there, and now I want to rotate this 60 degrees. So I'm going to hold down my Shift key and rotate it 60 degrees, stop. And now all I have to do is copy and paste and do that same thing 5 times over. Just dragging that blue dot, the dot into the center of the blue dot. 60 degrees. And again, Control C, Control Shift V. Transform. Drag the dot into the center of the blue dot. And if I want to save myself some time here, I have 2 more to go, so I might just copy both of those. Control C, Control Shift V, transform, grab my little dot up here, drop it in the middle. It does 2 at once. I could have done it from the beginning, but anyway. So now I can delete this blue dot because we don't need that anymore, and I've got the basis for my pattern here. At the moment it's in 6 paths, but what I can do is group those together to make my life a little bit easier. So I'll push Control G, or I can hit this group button up here on the toolbar, and I'm going to hold down Shift and make this whole design a little bit smaller. Oops, just try that again. There we go. Now I need to repeat this over and over again, and that will be my pattern. So I'm going to copy and paste, Control Shift V. Once I've copied, and I'll drag it over, holding down the Shift key, and you can see there that my snaps help me recognize exactly where I need to drop it. And now I need to duplicate these 2, so I'm going to copy and paste. This one's a little bit trickier. You need to drop the bottom pentagon in between the two existing designs. And you might need to zoom in because you really want to try and focus on getting this as precise as possible, because if you don't, it will muck up the whole pattern. So I'm going to really zoom in. Whoops, probably a little too far. Zooming in there. Oops. Lost my way a little. Okay, so I can see it in this area down here. I'm just going to arrow up. And if I click away, looks slightly off, so I might just try again. Sometimes it's worth having a bit of a click around and seeing where to best drop your design. Okay, now I need to copy all 4, and I just repeat the same process until I have enough of my pattern to fill the space that I've created. Again, I'll just arrow across to make sure they match neatly. zoom out. I might shrink this a little. If I find that I'm having trouble selecting, I can select all and then group them all. So Control G to group them all, makes them all the one object. Can be a little bit easier to handle. Copy, paste, and move up. Again, you really want to focus on getting those lines precise as you possibly can get them. Actually, I might move this top one over so that I have a more squarish shape. Maybe even one more. That's better. Okay, obviously I could keep going with this for quite a long time, but what I'll do is I'll just show you how to color or create some interesting designs. So once you have your entire pattern done, and you're happy with the way that it's all aligned, you need to ungroup everything. So I would push Control Shift G as many times as it takes so that you can't see any more groups on the left hand layers panel. So I'll just push Control Shift G, and now they're all in paths. So there's no more groups left, which means that I can give each of these shapes a fill. So if I turn this on, they all turn blue. And that's an interesting pattern in itself. But there's some different ways that I can change this up to make it a bit more interesting. So what I can do is I can select all, and I can turn down the transparency, and you can start to see a bit more of an interesting pattern happen there. Another way that I can alter this to make it look really interesting is to, I'll turn the fill off, and I will go up here to my modify path and then convert to outline button. Here it asks me for a positive value for the outline, so this is how wide my lines will be, and I might just try 5. Actually, I might try 10. Click OK. And you can see there that my paths all have an outline now, and I can give each of those outlines a different fill. So if I turn the fill on, now you can see that there's a really interesting pattern happening. And there's all sorts of different things that you can do here. You can change the fills to all sorts of different colors, or I really encourage you to play around and try as many different things as you can with the design. That's all for this tutorial. Thanks very much for listening.